Always remember, the opinion you follow should be your own. Just consider the things stated here to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online.
Happy Friday, Mike.
Happy Friday, Phil, and good day to everybody out there in Listenerville listening into the random waypoints for another week here of, well, you know, I don't know what we're going to talk about today, but Phil's probably got some things up his sleeve, so hit me with them.
Is Happy Halloween appropriate?
Happy Halloween. Well, yeah, that's true. It's Halloween today.
They celebrate something different in Mexico, don't they?
So we have Dia de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead, and that happens the day after Halloween. Basically, so here Halloween is Friday. Dia de los Muertos is a 2-day thing. It goes Saturday, Sunday this year. I think I got the days right, anyways. But yeah, I got the days right. Yeah, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, I think they take the getting dressed up part to a whole nother level versus America.
Yeah, so it's interesting. They didn't used to have Halloween here, really, but in the last couple of years, of course, the American way spreads everywhere, and now the kids have latched on and figured out that they can get candy. So they'll go around and trick or treat like we do in America. And then, but the Dia de los Muertos, I don't know if you've seen the Katrina dresses. You know, they dress up with these very, very elaborate dresses, and they paint their face. It's all like the skeleton-looking things and stuff, and super cool. In fact, they have everybody's house sets up a room with I guess you'd call it a memorial thing in a room to all the people that have passed, before. So it's a big thing. In fact, you go to some of the businesses and they even set it up inside the business. So you walk in the hardware store and they're in the little corner. They got this little shrine set up with candles and whatnot. So it's a big deal and big party. Like we'll go out and they eat and they drink and they have a good time. So it's a lot of fun.
There are similar celebrations to what they do in Mexico all throughout South and Central America.
Yep, that's true.
All dealing with death.
Yep. Which I guess, I didn't know this, but I guess our Halloween actually comes from that because these are obviously much older, and I guess our Halloween adjusted off of that. And of course, the Americans got to take it to a new level. Let's see, how do we make money on this? Let's sell people costumes and candy. That's typical, right?
So, Mike, picture this. A 16-year-old boy in Baltimore just finished football practice. He's munching on Doritos. And minutes later, 8 police cars surround him, guns drawn, shouting for him to get on the ground, all because an AI system thought his chip bag was a gun. The system flagged it, humans cleared it, but somehow cops still rolled up. So, Mike, after hearing that story, a harmless kid with a bag of chips getting cuffed because of faulty AI, do you think schools should keep using these detection systems?
Well, I'll tell you what, the kid's probably going to get rich after he sues everybody. I could see him winning some money out of that. But, that's the problem with AI, just in general. You've heard me talk about this on here before. It's like a system that's, it's not all there, right? I mean, on the surface, sometimes you look at stuff and it looks super real or does some great detection or it gives you good whatever. I run it through like if I'm trying to put together some kind of statement or story or something. But the problem is it doesn't work without the human attachment to it still, right? So I can see using the AI system, but common sense will tell you that the police should have said, oh, flag goes up, guy's carrying a gun, and then looked at it with your human eye and go, oh, that's a bag of Doritos.
Well, Mike, this is something I brought up a couple of months ago. I used the example of the movie AI Report, Minority Report.
Yeah, Minority Report.
And I've also spoken about it when we've discussed drones, about how a lot of these drone systems are now using AI. No, a human is not making any decisions. And these things are like in the high 90, 99% accuracy, but that 1% is devastating.
Right.
Right. For them to be making life or death decisions, it's got to be 100%.
Yeah.
Or it has to have something where it defaults to the final decision. Somebody says okay or something like that. That's what I think.
Well, it's like if the president's going to launch nuclear missiles, there's a couple of guys that's got to turn the keys. It's not a one person operation. So I don't know. Yeah, it's not all there yet. And I know and I've probably got some listeners out there that are super AI fans, because I've got a couple friends that are like, they think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but it's not without its challenges. Let's just say that. I'm not ready to sign on board as a full AI guy. I use it and I keep experimenting with it a little bit. Like you mentioned, you just brought up drones. And I know the DJI thing has AI now right on the part of the flight package. In fact, now they've got some things that you can select I don't know what you want to call them, pre-flight patterns, I guess, with AI. And it'll do certain things that are going to look cinematic to the viewer or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm always leery of that. It's going to fly my drone into the side of a building or something, but we'll see.
So, Mike, the NBA is facing a major betting scandal.
Boy.
Players accused of manipulating stats and sharing insider info with gamblers. The league's investigating what could be one of the biggest integrity breaches in years. Do you think this is just a few guys cheating, something more widespread in the NBA, or should we start assuming all pro sports might be rigged?
Oh, I'd start assuming all pro sports might be rigged. I mean, and not to sound conspiracy theory like, but do I think it's limited to the guys that they caught? No. Do I think it's limited to the NBA? No. Do I think that it's conceivable that somebody on some team in any professional sports, quote, help throw the game by faking an injury or some other thing to make it go one way or another because there was a lot of money involved? I can see that. I'm not. I don't have a lot of faith, I don't think, in professional sports at this point, to be totally honest with you.
So, first, just looking at it as far as the NBA, like I've mentioned many times, I know and have known quite a few NBA players. I used to play ball with a lot of NBA players when I was younger, and living in Chicago, and most people who have any association with basketball in Chicago know this. This isn't a secret I'm telling. There is a culture of cheating all the way from high school. And I'm not just referring to the betting. If, like, we had a boy in in grammar school who was already 6'7" in 8th grade. You can look him up. His name was Lamone Lampley. I went to school with him. He went on to be like 7'2". But I remember he already was having things given to him, and and women were being thrown at him and things like that before high school.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a culture of betting in Chicago. Guys coming up, gang members usually take them under their wing and they take care of them. And in return, there may be some guy that says, oh, I can play basketball. And so he gets his guy that he's been supporting, and he'll be like, okay, play him, and they'll play for like thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So a guy who is a good basketball player in Chicago, by the time you're 20 years old, you have played in a multitude of basketball games for money, whether it's just giving you money to play, whether it's gambling, something.
Yep.
So as far as the NBA, I think it's more prevalent than even the most intelligent person who's looking at it, who's thinking, yeah, it's way more prevalent. I'm saying it's even way more prevalent than that. I've really got a pulse on this one. And I've also known football players, not as much, and it's a similar thing. I didn't see as much as in because it's not enough. You got to get a team together and everything to gamble. Uh, but there's all levels of gambling in the NBA. I'll tell you something, and I wouldn't say it because I could get sued for this. I, I've seen Michael Jordan gamble with drug dealers many times, many times, all throughout his career. Uh, Let me word this properly. People in Chicago don't believe that he quit basketball for 2 years because of um, his love of baseball.
Right.
And I'll leave the insinuation as that, but he loved basketball. During the time he was playing baseball, I remember when he said he wasn't going to play ball anymore. That weekend, he was at the gym playing basketball with us.
Yep. Yep.
You understand what I'm saying?
I understand.
Okay. So I think this is way, and I think it's always been, and I think a rule of thumb is professional sports is on the take, period. Don't pick a sport. They're on the take. And I'll take it even further. Like people don't think about it, but like NBA ball players take steroids. A lot of these sports that aren't just particularly for strength. Right. We don't think about steroids, but there's steroids throughout. So that's a level of cheating.
Yep.
There is so much cheating in sports. I don't know why people bet.
Well, that's the other thing. You got to remember that it's the betting on sports has been going on for many, 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 many years, pretty much always. The difference, though, is there's a lot of legal betting now that did not exist before. So now it's become even more lucrative, and I just think it's more commonplace. And there's going to be people that are going to do it that may not have done it before.
And there's so many levels of cheating that you can do. I can't think of the name now. Prop bets. These I could be a star. I could go ahead and win the game, but all they're asking me to do is get a couple of more steals, or don't get any steals at all, or once the game is complete, sit on the bench and don't get back out there or something. So you could literally not affect the win or the loss of the game and still be involved in all kinds of little prop bets.
Yep. Yeah.
And I didn't know the word prop bet at the time, but that's when I first saw prop bets was in high school. I saw guys that were like stars in sports, and the drug dealers and gangbangers and stuff, they'd come to them and they'd be like, just, don't score 30 or score 30 or whatever.
Yep.
So I think if you're in sports culture, you realize that betting is like congruent with sports.
Yep.
So Mike, Hurricane Melissa has devastated Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica. Homes destroyed, people's desperate for help. But with our own government shut down, Americans are asking tough questions. On one hand, sending aid shows compassion and strengthens regional stability. On the other, we're billions in debt and struggling to support our own citizens. None of these islands are part of the U.S. So Mike, do we owe them any help at all?
Well, so you got two of the three places that were hit badly were Cuba and Haiti, of which it's unlikely that there's going to be much help coming from the U.S. there. First of all, they're probably going to reject it. Haiti's such a mess that, who knows. Jamaica, on the other hand, which is the original place that it hit, and I can't even imagine. Having been in a hurricane at 75, 85 miles an hour, I can't even imagine being in a hurricane at 185, 190 miles an hour. I mean, I saw some video coming out of Jamaica that was like, oh, holy shit. You know, the palm trees were like sideways laying down, and there were just stuff flying through the air like torpedoes. So, I mean, the devastation in Jamaica is 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 life changing for probably decades. I mean, it's no joke. The infrastructure in Jamaica, having been there a couple times, it's better than some of the other islands. It's certainly better than Cuba and Haiti for sure. But they're going to take a long time to recover. You know, and I don't know. I haven't looked at the news to see if they've even asked for help from the U.S. You know, the government shutdown thing. I mean, that's a whole different discussion. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's somewhat irrelevant of whether or not we're going to help somebody else. That's two different issues.
I agree. Well, I'm against all of the money we send out to other countries. But if we weren't sending out all of that money, it would be pittance to send aid to someone who really needs it. I don't think we should be sending money to these countries for day-to-day operations and things like that. But I think we should be top 3, top 5 always in helping and assisting third world countries, small islands, you know, to recover from something devastating. I think that's a responsibility for a lot of the things that our freedoms, everything that we have, we owe people. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, Mike, Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson wants to hit social media giants like Meta and TikTok with a 50-cent amusement tax per user to fund mental health programs. But legal experts are already calling it unconstitutional and dead on arrival. Some say it's a bold move to hold tech accountable for addicting our youth, while others argue it's just another tax that'll trickle down to small businesses and consumers. So, Mike, do you think Chicago can actually collect this tax without forcing social media companies to hand over private user data?
No, I think it's a non-starter. I will say that I don't agree with this guy on much, but I will say that he's probably correct in his assumption that social media is certainly contributing a fair amount to our mental health problem. There's no question about it. I'm going to agree with him on that one.
Yes. I've read so many research papers online and different things and just regular news articles about how just 10 years ago, the rate of people who said they had anxiety or feelings of loneliness or feeling lesser than, self-esteem, all of these things, it's not just like double, it's like times 10 or something. It's just really went off the charts. People's emotions, people's conscience, people's morals, everything seems to be correlated to what is going on in social media. Social media now is their barometer for success, happiness, everything. And it's ruining people.
Well, because it sets unrealistic standards for everything, whether it's physical
and you
looks,
I have helped that.
Or yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I mean, it's just it's a true look. I try to. So here's the problem. I think this is one of the problems. There's a lot of social media users that are what I'm going to call peripheral users, and they're not necessarily thinking about it. They don't use it a lot, possibly, or maybe they do, but they look at other stuff. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's a lot of stalkers out there, and when I say we use that word, what I mean is there's a lot of people that follow a lot of people on social media, but they don't actually utilize the media themselves. In other words, they don't post a lot about themselves. So what they don't realize is if you take me. you take Drive the Globe and you look at the last 20 things I posted. Those are highlights of things that have happened or that I'm doing or the things that are coming up or that I'm marketing or whatever. It doesn't mean that there weren't 3,000 other things that happened in that same time frame. But I didn't post, I don't post a social media story every time I take a crap. You know what I mean? Like, so it's only showing the highlights and likely it's showing the exciting things because that's what people want to see. So unfortunately, for the people that, and I think 75% of social media users are readers rather than writers, meaning that they're consuming social media, but they're not contributing to it. And those people get depressed. They get anxiety. They look at, they're following 30 people or 50 people or 2,000 people. And they're like, wow, he's doing this and she's doing that. And oh my God, look at that sunset picture that they took up on the mountains. And look at this. And man, my life sucks. I didn't have any of these things happen.
Growing up, media was always looked at, whether it was a movie, TV series, radio, whatever it was always looked at as escapism.
Yeah.
You were escaping your life. You recognized your lot in life and you were looking at this just to fantasize or to look outside yourself. Escapism. But now it's not escapism. It's this twisted thing where people will watch a movie or a TikTok or whatever it may be, and they are literally comparing their life with a millionaire or some story being told in a movie or whatever. And it's narcissistic to think you're on the same level of a dream or a fantasy being created on a screen. It's just disgusting from every direction to me.
And the problem is that too many people are trying to be somebody else and not be themselves. So the biggest thing about social media, and one of the things I teach when I'm doing classes at say Overland Expo, I do a class on social media, is that you got to be yourself. You can't try to emulate someone else. None of us can do that. So, and I too often I see people, particularly people that aren't really doing it on a day-to-day basis, are you'll see a post that goes up to them, they haven't put a post up in 3 months, and all of a sudden you'll look at it and go, God, it seems like they're trying too hard, or they're trying to be what they think is what people want to see. But that isn't the way to do it. The successful people are simply doing what they do. And the more real you are and the more you that you are, the better. And I think that we all get sucked into that. And not to get too far down in the bunny trail of social media, but it is definitely causing a major mental health situation, particularly because we also, on the bad side of this, we also allow people of a very young age to consume massive amounts of this stuff. Oh. So back in the day when you and I were growing up, our parents threw us out the door and said, don't be back till dinner time. Go climb a tree or something. Now parents it's so easy to go, oh, Johnny's over here driving me crazy. Here's the iPhone. I know you're only 5. Go on TikTok. Watch some TikTok for the next 6 hours so I don't have to listen to you. And that's a problem.
And you know what else is a problem about that, Mike? I've witnessed this too many times. A parent will put the adult restrictions on there or the child restrictions or whatever. And every time, so that makes the kid have to always come to them to sign in and approve something, right? And I've seen more than once where the parents get so irritated with them constantly coming to get these approvals, they just give them, they just open it. Right.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. So next thing you know, God knows what they're watching. Because look, here's the problem. As you know, as a social media consumer, the algorithms, particularly we were just talking about TikTok, is so good that it latches on to what you are looking at or interested in within seconds, and then it starts feeding you more and more of it. So, I mean, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Is it even remotely inconceivable that some of these crazed shooters or these mass casualty incidents are created because TikTok sucked them in? Hell yeah, of course they are. Because this guy look, you can go from 0 to 60 in 5 minutes. You you look at one thing and then they start feeding you 30 more things, and before you know it, an hour later, the poor guy, all he's seeing is how to make a bomb, how to shoot this, why should you kill these people, and how they're going to end the America. And I got to take this guy out.
But Mike,
that's what happens.
It'll be all that you just said. But then all of a sudden you'll start finding that, there are other people who think this warped, crazy thing just like me.
Yep.
So sometimes you could know how to build the bomb, but there's no support.
Right.
And so you're like, oh no, I shouldn't do that. But it's like, okay, other people think like me.
Right. Exactly. So now there's justification for your actions, and it's like getting positive reinforcement out there. So that's so the problem with social media in general is you're either getting a lot of positive reinforcement or you're getting a lot of negative reinforcement. You're always getting the two sides. It's very rarely that you're just getting either both sides, or you're kind of getting a real picture of anything. You and I talk about this in the Overland world. I mean, give me a break. Like, not to offend anybody out there, but your top 5 people in the Overland world that you probably, most of you out there want to follow are just a bunch of bangers. Like, it's fake. It's no more real than watching some scripted reality TV show like Housewives of Beverly Hills or whatever. I mean, it's no more real.
Mike, everybody don't know what you're talking about, so please explain what a banger is for new listeners.
I mean, a banger is somebody that's portraying that they are living this is my definition, that they're living a lifestyle of, in our case, what we're talking about overlanding, a lifestyle of adventure, being off grid, going to rugged places, going to unexplored trails. And Phil and I came up with this banger thing years ago. It's like, when your favorite social media overland icon shows you this beautiful picture of Canyonlands, and they've just described how they've traversed the last 200 miles of out country, off grid. What they really did was take a picture of the beginning and the end of the trail, and they posted it up there. And now you are sitting at home going, man, I always wished I could drive across Utah on the backcountry road, and man, how do they do this? And it's so beautiful. Well, they didn't. That 5 minutes after they took that picture, in fact, while they're posting that picture, they're actually sitting at In-N-Out Burger right before they're going to go to Planet Fitness to take a shower.
Right. and to be fair, it's not just the Overland community, because like, for instance, something I see every time I go to Yellowstone. There'll be somebody, they take pictures right there at the Yellowstone sign right before you go in, and then they'll stop midway, they'll take a picture at the geyser, and then they drive out and take a picture there. And if you talk to them and get their Instagram, you look at their Instagram, we spent all day in Yellowstone, and they list all these things they did, and they're like, you didn't do nothing but drive through.
Right. That's right. You came in the south entrance and you left to the West Yellowstone and you drove that thing straight. You could do it in an hour and 45 minutes max. Yep. And then they'll be like, they'll list somewhere on their, adventures accomplished, and you got Yellowstone is checked off. did Yellowstone. Yep, I'm a Yellowstone expert. I could do a whole class on Yellowstone.
Right.
Oh man.
Okay.
Shit. I got enough flack last week. I was, I got somebody wrote me I'm all over the place here. Somebody wrote me a DM saying, "Hey Mike, what is your obsession lately with throwing the Democrats under the bus? You're fixated with the fact that what about Donald Trump doing all these bad things, and you keep blaming it on the Democrats?" I go, well, look, the bottom line is I'm not saying that the Democrats are doing what Trump's doing. I'm telling you that Trump's doing what he's doing because the Democrats put him there. The Democrats failed to bring up a guy that could run against him. So I'm saying it's their fault, and they've got to solve the problem. They got to come up with their own guy. And it's very similar to what we're talking about with the banger. It's a falsehood. Just because I'm blaming the Democrats all the time and railing on them does not mean that I'm supporting the other side. I'm just trying to bang it into your head to stop. Well, how did I get on this tangent? Holy shit. I don't even know. Here I go again. Anyways, so now I'm anti-Democrat, anti-banger, and just be. I mean, the bottom line is just be you.
Mike,
that's the problem.
It's no getting around this topic. One of the biggest topics this week. The U.S. government is in a shutdown again, and Congress missed the funding deadline, freezing pay for federal workers and halting many programs. Mm-hmm. One big headline this week is that food stamps or SNAP benefits may not go out on time. Mike, is that really as catastrophic as people say, or are too many just gaming the system? And should people who get food assistance be required to work at least part-time to keep those benefits?
Oh, shit, Phil. I mean, that's you just asked me 12 questions packaged as one.
So let me get this off my chest, okay? I already had an agenda. That's probably why I had all those questions. This is another thing that I've got a pulse on, Mike. I would venture to say a majority of SNAPs and food stamp or whatever you call it benefits people need to go to work.
Well, okay, so the government shut down, and because of that, they can't fund the program. Now, that's a fact. There's supposedly a I don't know what you want to call it, a rainy day fund where they're supposed to be able to use in case this happens, which I actually am not in support of doing because here's the problem is that both parties have hijacked the system in order to shut the government down. Mm-hmm. So what they're doing isn't right on either side.
I agree.
The SNAP program is vital to some people in the country. There's no question about it.
No doubt.
Now, the problem is I saw an interesting graph, very interesting graph yesterday, and it's a map of the United States that shows by county what counties use the most SNAP. And I was actually shocked, and maybe somebody out there in Listeningville can explain this to me, but I'm going to take an example because I last lived there. Massachusetts had an unbelievably high usage of SNAP. Now, explain that to me because the last I checked in, Massachusetts was the most educated state in America. Mm-hmm. It is considered to be one of the wealthiest states in America. Mm-hmm. So that gets my my panties in a bunch, if you will. Strong economy. So this gets me my panties in a bunch because what else is Massachusetts known for? Well, Massachusetts is known to be a very liberal state. So, shocker, shocker. If I got a liberal state, the likelihood that they're going to grant SNAP benefits is higher because they believe in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, are we suggesting that the reason that the SNAP benefits are so high in Massachusetts is because they like the programs? Well, so that would indicate to me that there's many people getting it that shouldn't be. So,
Mm-hmm.
because I would expect the SNAP payments to be super high in very poor, uneducated areas. Now, in some
No, them
cases,
people go to work.
and that also might be the difference. That also might be the difference, Phil, because now you're talking about your average job being, let's call it minimum wage, as opposed to Boston, where your average job is starting at 200 grand. So it was an interesting, eye-opening graph, and the commentary involved in it was that the Republican Party wants to format the United States more like what you would find in Utah or Wyoming, which, by the way, the SNAP benefits were below 5% almost in every county in Wyoming, Utah, most of Nevada, various parts like that. So and the Democrats want to model their program obviously more like Massachusetts or Oregon or Washington or California. So, but it was interesting because I saw the SNAP benefits program being utilized more in liberal states and liberal areas than they were in red states. Now, that's not the that's not the discussion that you typically hear lately, where people are always saying that the poor Republican right wing areas are ones getting more of the subsidy of the benefits. So somebody
Well,
explain this to me.
well, I agree. As long as we are sticking to the food stamps and SNAP and stuff like that. If we're just talking about government subsidies and
No,
support,
that's different.
it flips
Yes,
to
agreed.
red by a
Yep,
large amount of money.
exactly. And that's why I'm specifically focused on SNAP and SNAP only. Because that was an interest. So I want somebody to explain that to me because I legit don't really understand that. Because when I looked at Massachusetts was damn near I mean, it was so heavily. There were counties that were as high as nearing on 18 to 20%. It's one out of every 5 people. That seems unrealistic. Whereas we took parts of Arkansas, Alabama, that were like obviously poor counties that were down in the 5, 6, 7% range. So something not right.
So, Mike, I'm not going to try and pretend like I'm down and out, but something that has irritated me all my life is when I'm in a grocery store and the person in front of me, because I always pay attention to what people, buy. And I'm seeing all of these gourmet meats and different things. And then they pull out an EBT card. And I just spent an extra 30 minutes walking around to make sure I got the best prices. And I put something back to get something and all of this stuff. And this person literally has 2 carts of food, all gourmet stuff, and they're just giving an EBT card. I'm looking at their clothes. Their clothes are nicer than mine. I go out to the parking lot. They got a nicer car than me. There's a lot of scamming going on. People will get all of those benefits, some even including housing. So basically everything is paid for, and then they just find a way to make cash. And when you look at their life, they're living a $200,000 lifestyle without working. So that's what's going on in America. And back to the Overland community, you have a lot of Overland people. That's part of their scam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're right. So you asked me at the top of this segment, do I believe that if you are getting assistance programs like this, that you should be trading for work? And my answer is yes.
Hell yeah. It was supposed to be, here's something to for you to survive until you get back on track.
But
It was
that's
supposed
not
to be a
what's
very
happening.
short, limited time.
And that's just simply not the case.
I had a buddy who, by the time he was going to get the benefits, he had found a job already. That's how it's supposed to go.
Yep.
So, Mike, as the government shutdown nears a month, President Trump's budget team quietly raided over $5 billion from military housing, research, and shipbuilding accounts to make sure troops are paid this Friday. With 42 million Americans set to lose food stamp benefits, it raises a question. Mike, is this really about taking care of the troops or a calculated move to keep pressure on Democrats and shift the blame away from Republicans?
It's a calculated move to shift the blame away from the Republicans. There's no question about it. But I want to bring everybody back to what I said last week. The shutdown, and I've read about this and I've listened to, just about everybody's opinion on it. The shutdown, in my opinion, is more caused by the Democrats than the Republicans, because they're the ones that are refusing to pass the appropriation bill because of those sunsetting issues that they want to extend, even though they voted before on them and approved when they would sunset. So if anybody's reneging on what they said before, it would be the Democrats, because now they want to change the due date on what largely, by the way, has got to do with the Obamacare program, which unfortunately, I mean, there's politics involved in that too, where the right is, they've just been against that from the day one. But the program sucks. I mean, I'm not saying it's better or worse necessarily than what we had before it, but it sucks just as bad as what we had before it. And probably, the healthcare in America is a disaster. So, unfortunately, what we need is a real solution, instead of continuing to prop it up and extend it over and over and over again, where it's not a great program in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. The reality is that if 4 Democrats voted to pass this thing, that the stalemate would be over. So I don't know how you can. It's hard for me to see how you can blame the Republican side for it. They keep voting to pass the budget.
I'm kind of getting to the point, Mike, where the Democrats seem to be giving off the impression to me that they don't think that they can win, so why change anything up? Because pretty much anything they need to do, if I said, Mike, give me just 3 things that they need to do to change, it will be major ideological 180-degree changes. They would literally have to turn their backs on things that they have stood their ground on. So it just seems like they have said, we don't want to look hypocritical. We don't want to submit to an apology. We don't want to correct. We're going to just stand our ground because we have no other option. They really don't have, they would have to become Republicans pretty much.
Well, the problem is they paint themselves in a corner. It's the party of the painted in the corner. And there's no change. Look, I just listened to an interview last night of Kamala Harris with, I think it was Australian television, and she's talking about her book still, and she's talking about potentially running again in 4 years or 3 years or whatever. And I mean, she sounded like, it was fucking word salad again. Like she didn't. I mean, it's nice to hear foreign media, because foreign media is a little bit harsher than American media. And the Australian woman was just like, what you just said didn't even make any sense. Say it again, because
I missed that one.
Oh yeah, it was great. And the reality is though, my point to the whole thing is that we I say we, the American public, and particularly on the Democrat side, I think are there's some kind of consideration, I think, on their side that they might entertain her running again.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, I don't know how to.
Wow.
I mean that if that doesn't prove that they don't get it, I don't know what does. And
wow.
yeah, so we're already a year. Let's call it a year into Trump, and they haven't come up with any new. So the big argument from the left is that Trump is doing all of the things that we warned you he was going to do. Now, think about that for a second. He's doing all of the things that we warned you about. Why did they warn him about it? Because he said he was going to do them. So what you're basically saying is Trump got in and he's doing all the things that he said he was going to do, which is exactly what's happening. And here's the problem. If you don't like the things that he's doing, you should have brought a candidate that had an opposing platform. The problem is, I would argue that they didn't have a platform at all. That's the problem. So it was either you got to choose between two things. One candidate standing up there saying, these are the 30 things I want to do. And then you had the other candidate standing up there and go, status quo, let's just keep doing what we're doing. And everybody's looking around going, well, we're not doing anything. We're fucking not doing anything. Well, why the hell do you think he won then? I mean, I'm so frustrated. Phil, you got me going again. I dropped the F-bomb last week more times than I've ever done on one podcast. And I'm at it again because it's mind-boggling to me that you guys can't see that. Like, you're just fucking you're a bunch of ostriches.
They went too hard in the paint, Mike, on major subjects. And after all is said and done, they would have to rebuke their past.
Some of them are. Listen to some of them. Listen to the ones that are critical of Biden. Listen to the ones that are critical of Harris. Listen to the ones that have admitted that, like, look, they made these mistakes. Okay, but now we got to go a step further. One of those people has to put out a platform and go, look, this didn't work. And yeah, some of these things I like, but you know what? They're losers. So let's drop that. Let's not deal with that. Here's the 5 things. And by the way, I think it could be 5 things. It could be because everybody votes for economics. They want to know how much their gas bill and their food bill is going to cost. They want to, look, there's not that many things to talk about.
But then I'm going to ask you about, you could do all of that.
What are you going to ask me about? Whether I think fucking men should play on the women's sports team?
Exactly. That was exactly what I...
Fuck you. Fuck that noise. I mean, drop that. Like, seriously, if that's your platform, you're a fucking idiot.
So I'm saying...
fucking idiot.
You beat a Democrat.
That is a terrible... That is you're going to lose every fucking time.
But what I'm saying is...
No one gives a shit.
When you come up with the new ideas, when the moderator asks you or in a debate, the Republican brings this up, what is your position on it?
If I'm the Democrat?
Yeah, how do you get around
I'm going to say my prior Democrats were idiots. And they signed up for this program that's a loser because the reality is look, it's stupid. It goes against common sense and it affects less than 0.1%. Let's move on with another question, Miss Rachel Maddow.
Well, what about
how many votes are you going to lose? Not that many. Look, you lost. At the end of the day, fucking history shows that you lost on that platform. That was a loser.
So I would just hit them with 5 questions back to back on things like that. And yeah, you would rebuke them, Mike, but then people would, the next day in the paper is they be saying that you're not really a Democrat. You would not get no support.
Okay, so
It's like a lose-lose situation right now.
But hold on. Let's define for a second what is the definition of the Democrat. So define the Democratic Party. So here's the problem. I don't think you're going to be able to define that because it doesn't exist anymore. Likewise, I would say the Republican Party does not exist either. It's been hijacked by the MAGA movement and by Trump. So they don't really exist. So really what we're talking about is that the MAGA party beat the shell of the Democratic Party that was left. But the problem is that no one, the two of us on this podcast, are not going to be able to define what the Democratic Party is. I don't think, because you've got people all the way from let's say Fetterman in Pennsylvania that seems to like suddenly had common sense, even though he got smacked in the head so hard. And whatever, and now he seems to be making sense. All the way to Zoran Mondami in New York City, which is a self-admitted Democrat, socialist, basically communist. They're not seeing eye to eye. Then you've got Gavin Newsom, who's a yes man, and is trying to tread a Bill Clinton-like sort of Obama middle of the ground kind of talk. So which one of those is the party?
So you basically just described what their other issue is. They can't. I don't know how to say what I want to say, Mike.
Well, they don't have a platform. You can't go to a website. So let me argue. Let me piss Democrats off. If you go to the Project 2025 website, it lists a very intricate plan of basically what Donald Trump's party is doing right now.
I agree. But there's
where do I find that on the other side?
There's two things going on, Mike. Like, I 100% agree with you on the side about what is a Democrat. And like, if you looked on a website or you spoke to some official in the DNC, I agree. I'm sure that's some issue. But the people who actually believe in the Democrats and vote for the Democrats, they have a very clear thought process of what a Democrat is, even though it's inaccurate. They believe that as a Democrat, they are a wholesome, moral, loving person who is accepting of all people.
Bullshit.
And we make effort to support the person that's low on the totem pole, whether it's because of their economic status, their sexuality, their lifestyle, whatever. That's the image that Democratic people have.
But that's not a platform.
I understand. I'm getting to that. The DNC's platform and what the DNC represents and the people who are representative of the DNC are antithetical to everything that I just described. All educated, highbrow, scholarly, rich folks telling poor folks that this is the way. So that's what their issue is. A lot of people still think of Democrats as they're the good guys. They're the people who love. There's people who still think in their mind they're not Democrats. I mean that they're not violent. They still think like Trump and the red is the violent party.
So here's the thing, though, is Phil, both parties, both sides can effectively treat people well. Okay. Like I would argue right now, the problem is that neither of the two parties, which is, I'm going to call them the splintered Democratic one and the MAGA movement, neither one is putting people, what you described, friendly, nice people, they're not prioritizing that. Neither one of those.
I agree.
and I believe that the, quote, real Republican Party and the real Democratic Party that has fallen apart used to. And we've lost that. And so, but that's neither here nor there. Like, let's say you want to come up with an evil party, you still got to have a platform.
I agree.
So if you want to defeat the Orange Man, then you got to have somebody that can defeat him, and you have to have if the Orange Man has 20 premises points in his platform, then the other side has to have the same 20 points, and they don't have to be opposite. Some they could share the belief or maybe have different ways of getting to it. But something has to be opposite. You have to be opposite somewhere.
And that's what I'm saying. They already opposite. They would have, in order for them to get people to agree with them, they would have to pretty much agree with the Republicans. And you're saying like find some new subjects, but every time we get in a debate, I'm going to bring up those old subjects. You're not going to be able to escape them. As soon as you start trying to talk about the price of an egg or gas or some war or something, I'm going to bring it right back to my daughter runs track.
And that's, I don't know. That's the frustrating part. So I don't want to hear anybody. I'm done with the bullshit.
They would literally
excuses.
have to say, we no longer believe or agree or support some very major structural ideologies of the DNC.
Yes,
Like
agreed.
the things that are their foundation, they would have to, that's what I'm trying to say.
I
They would
think you're
have
right.
to erode their foundation to start something else.
Yep.
And what they need to do to erode it is basically say, we agree with the other party.
Yep.
And if you agree with the other party, then I should feel even better about supporting them now. I think they would bleed people.
Yep.
Anybody who's not in one of those little categories of theirs, I think they would end up going over to the Republicans.
Well, and that might be also the solution because, like I said, that party's also dead. They don't exist either. So,
they have to, if they were to repackage, they have to come up with a whole nother name. They can't be the DNC. They have to leave and be like the Tea Party.
I believe that's where we are.
Or something.
And I believe that's where we are at this point. I think that is, you just hit the nail on the head. That's the solution because the both of the other ones have the prior ones that existed before have been hijacked and they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you. Woo.
So, Mike, the Pentagon just sent out a memo to every state, D.C., and the U.S. territories ordering National Guard units to form quick reaction forces for riot control, all under a new executive order from President Trump. These units are meant to deploy rapidly in case of civil unrest. But does this move strengthen national readiness or risk militarizing domestic crisis?
I think he's trying to militarize domestic. I mean, I think they're fundamentally trying to change the structure of law enforcement in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, based on what we just argued about for the last 10 minutes, I think they're going to succeed.
So I agree with that. And we try to take these kind of conversations and make them left or right. But when you really analyze it, after every presidency ends, it seems like we have eroded some freedom.
Yep. We're on a record for erosion right now.
Right.
Let's be clear here. You might as well call the party in power the erosion party.
So that's the big fight that we need to have. We need to focus on how the government is slowly restricting us, more law enforcement, more surveillance. That's what we need to rail against.
Yep.
Maybe that's what the DNC needs to go.
There you go, Phil. There's a good platform. See, maybe somebody's listening out there. Unfortunately, we got a bunch of people listening out there that they're just laughing.
So, Mike, you got anything else you want to talk about?
I don't. I can't. I don't. I've reached the limit of F-bomb dropping for today, so I better check out. And hopefully, that's crossing fingers that Spotify and Apple are not throwing us off their platform. They're too busy paying for the new the ballroom at the White House, anyways. Oh, did I say that?
He had donors. Why are they tripping about this damn ballroom?
Because they're dumb. Don't get me going. I got to get off.
All right, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Tread lightly, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you here or on the trail soon.
You have been listening to Waypoint Overland's Random Waypoints. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.